OTB Sports Golf Weekly with Now TV. Stream live football action with a Now TV Sky Sports Pass. Your sport on your terms.
Oh, wow! In your life have you seen anything like that?
I'm a very confident front runner. I've caddied for 33 years, 145 wins now, and that's the best win I've ever had.
I have no idea what you have.
I don't know. How are we going to count all the shots? I can't keep track.
Damn it.
I don't think he's pleased.
Of course I would. That's a particularly stupid question. It's the Irish Open. Of course I want to play at the weekend.
Hello, Golf Weekly listeners. You're once again welcome along to the podcast. There's so much to discuss. Well, there's not really much going on in truth, but we're here nonetheless. Fionn Davenport, hello to you.
Hey, Joe.
And Peter Lawrie, Spawell Driving Range, thankfully opening again very soon next week. Hello to you,
Touch
Peter.
wood, Joe. Touch wood. How are you?
Very well. You must be itching just to get open again and get some kind of normality back.
Exactly. And I'm fed up with drainage work and stuff like that, so I'll be delighted to get people back in the door.
The glamour of drainage work.
Yeah.
So we got great reaction to last week's pod. Claude Harmon was on. We were talking Masters. Obviously, we talked a good bit about Rory as well. Peter, you had to leave us early. We might pick up a few thoughts on some other bits and bobs from the Masters. But for instance, and the love in here is disgusting, so you'll excuse me for a moment. Mick Walsh, great pod. By far the best part was podcasting trailblazer legend Peter Lawrie showing up in his car. Disappointed he didn't stay on for the drive home. So he was happy to see you in the car, Peter. Gary Harkin, lads, you're knocking it out of the park at the minute. Super guests. Colin Burke, enjoyed the pod as ever, lads. Out of interest, are you limited in what questions you can put to a guest generally? No. Claude Harmon came on. There was no pre-arranged questions, no off-limits questions. Well, I guess you show or try to show a certain degree of fairness. I mean, you're not going to go in there and be like, here, was your dad bitter when Butch and Tiger split up there? What happened there? You know, you're not going to go in for that. But no, there was no limit.
We're bound by the boundaries of decency and defamation. That's it, really.
You guys are, but I can pretty much say whatever I want.
Yeah.
It's funny, interesting, which is because the exact opposite of that is true. But yeah, it's a funny one because afterwards you're thinking, what else do you can dig dirt or you can ask about DJs. Do you remember when he took 6 months off? I just feel it's like, you know, I don't know if it's not an inappropriate question. It didn't really fit. You know, it's like, it's like we all know what the rumors were. We all know what the stories were at the time.
Yeah.
You know, but he's just won the Masters. It's like such a weird...
He's just won the Masters. Maybe if it was a cold, logical career retrospective when DJ had retired, then you bring up some of that stuff. But the day after he's won the Masters, talking to his coach of over a decade, is that really where you're going to go?
Yeah, it also, as well as from a broadcasting perspective, and Joe, you know this as well as any of us, but like you're trying to figure out what the corridor through the interview is, and you ask a question like that and doors just shut, and all of a sudden every other question you have it's difficult.
Correct. There's always that balance. You want to push it up to whatever line is there. I'm not talking specifically about Claude, but you want to keep the interview going. You want to ask the other 10, 15 questions. Like he gave us over half an hour, I think, the day after Johnson had won the Masters. I mean, if you lead off with dodgy questions, he's going to start looking at his watch pretty quickly.
Well, he's just going, guys, listen, thanks a lot.
You'd like to have him back on as well, you know, every 6 months. That's the other thing. You want him to enjoy it, you know?
Which isn't the same thing as saying, oh, you know, we will never ask questions that would make a guest uncomfortable. That's nothing to do with that.
I gave him the avenue to do it because I said, look, Johnson was a slightly chubbier looking fella back in the day. He's clearly got himself together, and you know there were certainly the rumors that he enjoyed nightlife, and he seems like he's more together now. Was there a moment that happened, or was there an influence or a reason that happened? And then he started talking. You know, he gave us a great insight. He took the question, but he said, "I'm going to talk about him now," and he gave us a great insight into what Johnson's regime is now, as opposed to getting too much into the past. And I think when a guest does that, especially someone as intelligent as Claude, you have to say, okay, you knew what my question was, giving you the option to talk about. You haven't done that. There's no need for me to push it again.
The only question, having read that tweet, the only question I thought, perhaps one question that I would have liked to have asked would have been, there's a kind of a thing that DJ was hot favourite to win the Masters in 2017 and then slipped and hurt himself in the cabin. So I would have enjoyed, it would have been interesting if Claude had shone a light on the extent of, how injured he was, how disappointing it must have been, particularly as Johnson came into that tournament as maybe not hot favourite, but certainly as the prohibitive favourite.
Nathan was going to ask about Butch working with Tiger, but we didn't. We just ran out of time. Sorry, Peter.
No, there's one or two. Being a coach, it seems to be very difficult to get your timings right with your different players. That's one of the questions I probably would have asked him if I'd been on. How does he focus his time on certain players at any given time? Like DJ is his number one, really. At this moment in time, but he also works with Brooks, does he not?
Yeah.
And a couple of other players. And how does he focus from one to the other to the other? And does he work in a particular way, or does he work with certain swing thoughts? And how each player is different. Like I know personally, like a lot of guys on tour are all different in the way they swing the club. But mentally, they're totally different. If you said to one guy, your angle of attack is X, he might quiver with that question and say, well, I never really, I don't know what my angle of attack is, and I don't really want to know. I just want to know how the ball comes back to the club, or how the club comes back to the ball. So,
pop quiz listeners, which one of the three of us is the former European Tour pro? Asking those insightful questions that we just... Now I want to know the answer to those questions.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Anthony O'Connell, I should know the difference between seriously excellent pods and others. As I listen to them all now, that felt like 5 minutes long. That's how quick the time passed. The bar has been raised and then on they go. You were all very kind this week, listeners. Thank you.
Yeah.
Forright says, that was simply brilliant. The Claude Harmon interview, so insightful. What a coup. It was a great coup. I think Nathan just texted. I think it was...
Nathan's class that way.
The height of it, yeah. He's a good man for just firing out some texts. Matt Dewan, great pod, gents. Rory will win a green jacket once he figures out how to turn his 75 into a 71. Tiger did that so well in the majors. John Figo Flynn, brilliant pod, lads. On it went. Ricky Joyce pulling out the big guns, fantastic pod. Would love to spend a day with Claude and Butch. I think we all would.
Oh, yeah.
They're just two of those characters you feel better, I suspect, for hanging out with, Peter.
They're totally different in personality-wise. You'd be amazed.
Really? They don't seem that different.
Yeah, when you meet them, they're totally different.
Go on.
No, it's just the way they carry on, Butch doesn't really talk that much, you know what I mean? I remember playing 9 holes with McGinley and Phil Mickelson, and Butch walked around. And that was in Abu Dhabi. But Claude would sit down and, you'd have a chat with Claude.
Okay. Very good. I didn't know you'd played a practice round with McGinley and Mickelson.
Yeah, robbed their money too, so it was great.
Did you?
Oh, check you out.
There you go. Yeah.
Good.
In Abu Dhabi, McGinley organised it. We played 9 holes. Phil played with one of the invitees from the Butch Harmon School in Abu Dhabi. So he got an invite because Phil was playing. And I was playing through merit at the time, thankfully. And Paul arranged it, played back 9 in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, and is this the one with the Falcon Clubhouse?
Yes.
I've played Abu Dhabi National. That's a great... Did you enjoy the course?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so did I.
I played there for years, but it was a golf course suited to long hitters, and still is.
Yeah.
Tell us about Phil that day then. What was he like to hang out with?
He was superb.
Yeah.
You couldn't meet a nicer guy. Chatted, no problem. But he got me one years after we played in Thailand. I think it was the Johnny Walker or something like that. And I remember being on the second hole, and it was a tight tee shot. and I was struggling with my driver at this time. And he comes up onto the tee, and I think, when you're struggling with your drivers, the last thing is you want a group on the tee waiting to tee off. So, of course, real tight tee shot. Of course, I block one right. Then I go, I better hit another one. So I hit another one. Luckily, I scabbed it down the middle of the fairway and I'm walking off the tee. And he just goes, "Nice pants." And I just thought, oh, what a fella, It was just a quote from nowhere,
Yeah, well, even based on the match, and there is the match 3 happening tomorrow, even based on the match, the way he went about his business there, man, he's just a fun person to have in your 4-ball.
Yeah.
Chatty, not boring, bit of fun, and obviously a genius. Was he, and in terms of his practice, was he trying ridiculous shots or was he taking it seriously enough?
No, because we were playing for a few quid, so it was serious enough. It wasn't.
Okay.
It was nothing major.
Okay. What's a few quid this weather?
Oh no, it was cheap. It was cheap at that.
Okay. 1,000 quid a hole.
Yeah. No.
Hi lads, long-time friend of the pod. Just a quick note on the Masters preview and review. I thought it was a bit odd you didn't mention James Sugru at all. It's not often, in fact, ever, that we have an Irish amateur at the Masters. He shot a 1 under 71, which I think was some sort of record for an RNA amateur. Might be worth getting an interview with him. I see he met Tiger too on the putting green. Could have a nice take on the Masters experience, staying in the Crow's Nest, etc. I didn't realise they stayed in the Crow's Nest in COVID times. He also played in the US Open. I'm a Galway man myself, so not normally too quick to big up a Cork man's achievements. I'd prefer not to have my name read out on air if you decide to mention this topic. Really enjoyed the pod. Keep up the good work.
Definitely worth trying to get in touch and see if James had come on and talk to us about the experience, which would be amazing.
100%. We will get him on. We will get James Sugru on. We'll beg him to come on. He was on the show a while back, shortly after he won the Open. That's a long time ago now. So we'll get him on for sure.
One of the things that struck me, and I put out the photograph, is that all my life, you always hear mention of the cabins at Augusta. And particularly when you also know that, this whole thing of like, oh, hamburgers are $1. Like there's a weird price point to do that. To get into Augusta, you have to be a billionaire. But once you're in, everything is like cheap as chips. And they keep prices kind of low to that 1950s level or whatever. And I always thought that the cabins were kind of a reflection of that like when you hear Nicholas talk about the Crow's Nest back in the 60s, and it was all like an amazing thing to experience, but it wasn't the height of comfort. And then in the camera angles that they used this year, which like those drone shots that they used for the first time, and then they panned the cabins. The cabins are they're like 8-bedroom villas. It's like,
they're cabins.
It's like, there's not a cabin. That's like a billionaire's home.
Yeah. I should, of course, say we are here with thanks to our friends at Now TV. Stream Premier League, Serie A, EFL Championships and more with a Sky Sports pass. So just as soon as you mentioned the Masters there, the drone shots, by the way, transform your sense of the course. They're amazing. I mean, drones are transforming TV left, right and centre. I watched the Long Way Up. I don't know if you're into that series, Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman. They've done a couple of trips now. They went... I
watched
London,
the first one.
Did you? London to New York, only east. And then they went down through South Africa about 7-8 years ago. So they've gone up South America from most southern tip to LA. But so they were always like handheld cameras or cameras in their helmets, and now suddenly they have drones. It's just transformed it. It was because I was watching both around the same time. Like Augusta, suddenly, I mean, it's amazing. You get such a deeper appreciation for the property. That's probably the word to use.
Changes your view, all right. I wonder how silent they are, because they seem to be able to get close enough to the players too.
They're not that silent, because Tiger was talking about how they couldn't hear the ceremonial tee off because the drones were quite near them at one point.
Really?
They're not nothing. They're definitely not nothing.
No, they're not. But they also have, and I know this just from amateur photography, that the broadcast drones that they use are big solid things, because obviously, like those little light drones that you can buy for like 500 quid, a little gust or bust of wind will knock them out. So these are big things, about yay big. And But the 4K camera and the zoom quality in the cameras are amazing. So when you're controlling, like you can be 100 feet up or 150 feet up and zoom right in if you want. So they don't have to be like just over your shoulder. The one thing I noticed, did you notice the amount of bloody fire engine noises or police sirens? Like
that's because there's no galleries
in the middle of either like a crime wave or something else. It's just constant flow of sirens.
Peter, you left us last week and we had talked a lot about Dustin and we had talked about Rory, and we ended up having quite a deep and long conversation about Rory even after Claude Harmon. So leaving those aside, Bryson DeChambeau, I was so disappointed with. I take it that he's ill. You know, I accept that he's ill, rather. But I never saw him took on the golf course the way I thought we were going to see him take on the golf course. Really, the 13th, when he was listening for trees at one point, was one of the real few times that you kind of thought, oh, this is a bit different, or he's playing things, you know, slightly differently to his playing partners. But for most of the, certainly Thursday, Friday, there was maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 yards between him and John Ram. I mean, there was nothing that special about it. I was kind of watching it saying, this is all hype. He's transformed himself, but all he's really done is joined the longer hitters.
Yeah, well, I don't think he was too well to be starting as the starting point. And I don't think he felt too comfortable being the favourite either. I think he put an awful lot of pressure on himself, and he succumbed to that pressure. And plus, he was kind of found out on a golf course with actual trouble on it. Like, we never saw that trouble ever before. Because of, you'd see galleries and they'd find the ball pretty quickly. We were seeing images of him trying to find his golf ball in certain areas, and John Ram helping him. And I think John Ram got a bit peed off having to go look for his golf ball a few times. But no, he certainly didn't see him himself, and he didn't play half the golf that he had done in the US Open. He didn't look like himself. He didn't swing the club as well as he had been. There was no great power to it that he had. And no, he didn't take on the golf course because I don't think he was able to. I don't think he mentally was or physically able to.
So was he almost so bad that you would say, well, I have to put that down to the fact that he was ill, so we're going to see a totally different prospect in April?
I would think so, yes. But there again, it proves my point in the fact that when that swinging at that speed, when it goes minutely wrong, it is just disastrous. And I really think there's a limit to the speed that you can put on a golf club and get it square. And being a tour pro, and you know the height of your game, that has to be, 99.9% of the time it has to be square. So swinging at that speed, I don't think you can. He has to rein it back a little bit, I think, to be successful going forward. I don't think he can keep on pushing the outer limits of how far he's hitting it to be successful, I think.
It'll be interesting because, as we know, he's thinking about using a longer driver, and so was DJ. Claude Harmon said he was thinking about it, but he just didn't have that fairway finder fade with the longer driver, so he didn't in the end. I suspect DeChambeau does not share your view, and I think he's looking at things like the way he chipped and, he bladed a few across greens, which again suggests he really was not well. So I think his strategy will be exactly the same come April, and he's hoping he's feeling better. I think he's looking more at the short game. You compare the short game to what he did at the US Open, and that's night and day.
It is, but he also, on his misses at the US Open, he was able to play them. This time he was losing golf balls or hacking out of, behind trees and whatever else. He had the option to hit a shot. And we all thought that Augusta was, it's a wide open golf course. You can get away with it. There is no penal rough whatsoever. So I was very surprised at him, to be honest.
So was that US Open course then a bit wider?
Well, it definitely seemed to be.
Yeah.
You know, because he missed it a few times quite wildly, and certainly got away with it. U.S. Open golf courses mainly don't have, you know, massive amounts of trees. It's all about rough in the U.S. Opens.
He just had the ability to. He wasn't so concerned about making fairways because he knew he could gouge it out of the rough with control. Whereas at Augusta, you find yourself in no rough but behind a tree, so you're poking it out, or you're forced to take on shots that you really shouldn't be taking on with waterfront Augusta's penal in its own way. And but I mean, I think, Joe, I mean, obviously we covered it last week, but yeah, I mean, obviously your point is right. If he wasn't feeling well, then all bets are off. I mean, I still found his it's a par 67 for me, just profoundly irritating. So from that Tuesday, I just wanted him not to succeed.
Mm.
You know,
he was right in the end with the winning score, though, wasn't he?
Yeah.
What he said is totally right. The 4 par 5s, and he now fancies driving the third. It's par 67. He was so unlucky to lose his ball in the third. That was outrageous.
He was very unlucky. Yeah.
Well, Peter, what about John Rahm? My lasting memory of Rahm is topping the ball. Is that a choke? If Rory had done that, we'd be talking about that for the next 6 months.
No, I think he was a bit unlucky, to be honest with you. When you look at the shot that he hit, okay, we all hit the odd bad shot. Whether it's either lack of concentration or he was trying something that, you know, that was just beyond his ability. But for it to finish where it did, and then to hit the tree and come back to finish where that did, it was just a calamity of errors. And it kind of ruled him out of the tournament there and then.
Was it not just like a top double cross? Like he was obviously trying to cut it like that. He's trying that slinging, not quite or that cut that's going to bring him up. And
was he not trying to hook it? I thought he was trying to hook it and kind of got it off the hosel of the club, and it ran along the ground.
Was it on the? Oh, right.
It was on the 8th hole. He was trying to hit a second shot.
My memory betrays me then, because I thought he was trying to cut it, hit a low cut that chased up onto the green. But
you can't cut it on 8. You have to hit it. Hit it right to left.
I've misremembered.
Yeah. And probably he if we look back, he was a little bit off the upslope as well.
Yeah.
So he was probably trying to hit it too hard, and you know, these things happen. It's not the end of the world. We all hit, you know, horrendous shots the odd time. And whether they happen at the Masters or whether they happen at your Sunday 4-ball or your Sunday singles, it doesn't make a difference. These shots just come out of the blue, whether we've taken our eye off it or we've thought too far ahead or whatever it may be. But they happen.
They didn't show it on TV, but I read, I can't remember which one of the American journalists who said that I think when he holed out on the 8th, he had like a proper 1.5 minute long angry, you know, full of Spanish curses and like holding the club like this, like he was going to snap the putter in half and then didn't. But like it was just like one stream of Spanish curses after another, just to obviously expel the frustration.
But his tournament was over then. Like you can't drop. He made 8, didn't he?
Yeah,
8 or 9. You can't drop those kind of amount of shots on a reachable par 5 when it's really a par 4.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So the leaderboard again was Johnson, then Cameron Smith, Sanjay Im, 15 under, Justin Thomas 12. Dylan Fratelli, who, by the way, has put a longer driver in the bag and is now suddenly one of the longest on tour. That's really interesting. So Fratelli, if that's the case, if he's now driving the ball that long, then that's more than a flash in the pan performance. So that's worth keeping an eye on. McIlroy was alongside him on 11 under. Then Rahm and Koepka were 10s. Webb Simpson 9 under. Patrick Reed 9 under. It wasn't a stellar leaderboard. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh on this. Patrick Cantlay was kind of 17th. Xander Schauffele 17th. That's exactly where they are in my head. That, you know, for all the talk of Cantlay and Schauffele at the moment, I still have them exactly where they finished up, kind of 17th territory. But like you're going into what? Fleetwood is 19th. Westhazen, Rose, Lowry, all kind of 23rd, 24th, 25th. Poulter 25th.
Fleetwood surprised a lot of people. He went into the tournament not playing particularly well, didn't play particularly well in the Masters previous to this, but shot really one really good round, didn't he? On Friday, was it Friday? He shot 64, 5, 6, somewhere like that.
Something in that territory, yeah. He had one good round. Ricky Fowler tied 29th. Are we saying it's over for Fowler? Or his days of, that run of finishing top 2, top 3, top 4 in every single major looked very promising, and he seems to have gone off a cliff now totally. What's gone on there, I wonder?
He's falling out of the top 50 in the world.
Yeah. And he's really serious. He may not be at the Masters next year.
He's 31 years old. He's on... I don't know what you think, Peter, but it seems like we just took it for granted that Ricky Fowler was always going to be like a regular top 10, always going to maybe not win a major, but definitely be thereabouts. And yet...
Again, another guy with a suspect kind of golf swing that had certain errors in it that could probably lead to, where he is today. Excellent when it goes well, confidence, etc., short game, all works well. But then when it slightly goes off, and then didn't he try and change his swing very fractionally? And then you're on a road to who knows where at that stage.
Well, he's left the Harmon stable now, so...
Yeah.
Still the most beautiful putter.
I'm not a great lover of his putting stroke.
Oh, geez, I'd love to putt like that.
It's no Donald Trump putting stroke, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah. Did you see that the other day?
No.
You've got to see the Donald Trump putting stroke has to be seen to be believed. He breaks his wrists worse than anybody I've ever seen. It's like he's never seen golf before. It's like he's never watched golf.
And he doesn't do too many things right, does he? So,
but the weird thing is that, for a man of his age and his, size, he has a good shoulder turn. He transfers his weight from right to left quite well on his swing. So he's obviously got the mechanics of golf. And when you watch that, you think that a guy who's played golf all of his life would have a more, I don't know, everybody's got a slightly idiosyncratic swing or whatever, it's fine. But that wrist break, it's like he brings the putter back and then just goes like that. It's weird. He flicks the putter at the ball.
It's really shocking the first time you see it. Sorry, Ricky Fowler, I thought we were I just thought everybody was in agreement, Peter, that Ricky Fowler's putting stroke is the most lovely, loose, flowing, relaxed, whack it in piece of magic out there, no? Every time he puts, one of the commentators says, that putting stroke.
No, not a great lover of it.
What?
Yeah.
Give me the reason.
I need to go back and look at it again, but I know personally I'm not a great... Is there not a lot of wrist action in it? If I'm correct.
No, that's Donald Trump we were talking about, Peter.
No, but Ricky as well.
No, I don't think so. Well, look, I'll have a look at it again. You've planted a seed of doubt now.
Yeah.
Right, so look, that's kind of the Masters where you can't keep rabbiting on about that for too much longer. This week, few bits going on that I want to get your thoughts on. No PGA Tour event, it's Thanksgiving. There is the Alfred Dunhill at Leopard Creek in South Africa on the European Tour. Stephanie Meadow, friend of the pod, she was on Off the Ball actually earlier this week. She finished third on the LPGA Tour in Florida at the weekend. Old putter sitting around the garage did the trick. And also on the PGA Tour last week, Robert Streb. So, I mean, it is amazing golf. 2 weeks ago, world number one laps the field at the Masters. That was followed by the RSM Classic in Georgia. Robert Streb, 367th in the world, your winner. He hadn't made the top 125 in the PGA Tour standings for the last 3 seasons. In his last dozen rounds before this event, he had broken 70 3 times, and suddenly he pockets $1.188 million. He will be at the Masters in April. He's on the PGA Tour for the next 2 years, and he's jumped 250 places in the world rankings. So there are some of the bits and bobs going on in the world of golf. We might start with Streb there for a moment. It is the great thing about golf. It just shows, you know, at 367 on a given week can beat any of the top 20 players in the world. I know it was not as strong a field, but there was some good players there.
It wasn't the worst field.
No, it wasn't.
I turned it on to watch Tommy Fleetwood, and I mean, unfortunately, or maybe I'm certainly Robert Streb doesn't think unfortunately at all, but you know, the week after the Masters, which is in April, it's normally Harbour Town, isn't it? And you know, there's always a drop off. You're never going to get numbers, but like it had an average of 346,000 watch the final round. And these are according to the US ratings, which literally are the worst ratings you could possibly imagine for a sporting event in the United States.
Judge Judy was getting 500,000 on either.
Yeah, that's
channel,
what I mean.
Almost
and, but like, sorry, just to not to bring back to them, but it was an interesting thing. I like ratings only not just for the numbers themselves, but what they indicate about where the sport sits or where the event sits in the popular mind. So I'm sure we've all been following it, but like over the last 5 or 6 months is like the NBA finals obviously played in that kind of limited format, have all shown reduced numbers. Baseball, the World Series showed reduced numbers. And one of the accusations that was made against them was that, well, you know, when you fold in social justice matters and Black Lives Matter issues and you have players taking the knee or whatever, that there's that attitude of, look, I don't want politics in this, I just want my sport. And it was an opinion that was amplified by Trump, certainly, and other people who would think that way. And it kind of lingered on over the course of the summer. And this idea of like, is that actually the case? Because ultimately, when it comes down to it, these guys are about dollars and cents, you know, the people who put on these events. But then when you actually look at the full ratings, and Sports Media Watch do a full ratings book. So the Masters was 51% down on ratings, and 48% down in viewership from Tiger last year, which is, you would expect it to be lower. That's fine. But it's it had a drop that was the fourth biggest of the four sporting events. The Stanley Cup, the Preakness Stakes, which is part of the horse racing Triple Crown, and then the US Open final round, which had a 56% drop on the equivalent round last year. Now, what all of those events have in common is the complete absence of any social justice issues attached to them. And, you know, like the Stanley Cup, ice hockey is not something that takes on, that is, you know, it's not a sport that kind of leads the charge on social justice. Horse racing, neither. The US Open, golfers obviously was very kind of timid in its response. But what these drop-offs show is that it kind of makes a nonsense of that. Oh, you know, it's those damn social justice warriors. I just want to watch my sports, which is basically, it just makes a lie of that the drop-off in viewerships of the major leagues of baseball or the NBA had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter or social justice issues. Nothing at all. Just the nature of the year that it was and the particular way that we've had to enjoy sport without fans, in limited formats, so on and so forth. So I just thought that was an interesting reveal. And the Masters just kind of lends credence to that argument. Yes.
Not a surprising reveal either, I would say.
Well, certainly what it does is, probably not, but like, because all the while, but it still kind of sticks in your craw. You're like, okay, so hang on a second. So because a baseball player might take a knee, that somehow, I'm turning this off, I'm not going to watch this. I just don't buy it. No. Like, it just seems such a nonsense argument to make.
No, it was never true. I just had overdosed on the Masters. I didn't particularly watch any of the RSM, I have to say. I don't know, did you guys feel the need to? So I
watched
don't
a tiny bit of it because I said Fleetwood was playing and it had a nice finish. And, you know, and as much as like, look, I wouldn't have paid Streb any heed, but like once you hear his story that he was ranked so low, that he gets his 2-year exemption, he's going to play in the Masters, like what's not to like about a guy who, from bad luck to a slice of good fortune?
Peter, it really is like winning the lottery. I mean, for someone like Streb now, he just goes home and he just says, we did it. We're home and hosed. It's another 2 years. Yeah. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the perks of a win.
You can change your whole career, but you can change your whole couple of years. You now can set a schedule. You're in certain tournaments. The mortgage people are off your back, et cetera, et cetera. He can go for club deals. You probably get an extra few quid on whatever clubs he was using. And it is. It's like, your 6 numbers come up in the lottery and you're good for another 2 years. And it gives you a bit of confidence as well to saying, wow. But therein lies the problem with golf. And it's the draw for so many young guys who turn pro, and they watch these golf tournaments and they see the guy who was 600th in the world winning 1.8 million, and he's set for life, etc., etc. But the percentage of successful stories are so few in comparison to all the failures that are out there, or the guys who are just don't make it, guys and girls who just don't make it, is shocking. And it's great on one end, but it's very bad on the other.
It was a week for the underdog, because at the Joburg Open, Joachim Hansen, age 30, he is 267th in the world to Robert Streb's 367th. It was extraordinary. So he won as well. So it was just that kind of a week. It's worth mentioning from the Joburg Open, and we're going to see more of this guy because he's playing this week at Leopard Creek. Remember the name, Wilco Nienaber. Wilco Nienaber. So Wilco is 20 years of age. He is South African. If the name doesn't ring a bell on your Twitter feed, you will almost certainly have seen his drive last week at the Joburg Open. 439 yards, even allowing for the 10% that altitude would have added. We're talking something pretty scary here. So he turned pro last year, and straight away, longest average on the European Tour at 341 yards. So Bryson is a measly 337. So I make it that Wilco has 4 yards average on Bryson, 341 yard average. 6'2", lean, strong, long levers, the modern day prototype. He finished second. He didn't win the tournament, but on that par 5, for instance, it was 600 yards long, and he hit driver, gap wedge, and eagle putt.
Did you see? But the ease of his swing, though, he wasn't going hard.
This isn't a Bryson DeChambeau, I look like my body is going to disintegrate as I swing kind of a swing. I'm not going to say effortless, clearly, but it's in control.
This guy is natural. I saw a swing in slow motion, and I actually took a picture on my phone, a screenshot on my phone of his impact position, and the top of his backswing and his impact position, and they are unbelievable. How much power he creates naturally swinging the club the way he does. It's just phenomenal. And if he holds his head together, this guy will be the next Ernie Els coming from South Africa. It just looks so good. But trust me, there has been many from South Africa who are like this, and are as good as this guy, and have fallen by the wayside. Whether they get too involved, money comes too quickly to them, etc., etc. But this guy looks like he could be a world beater.
I haven't paused his swing at the top or looked at his impact position. Is he?
I'll send him to you later on. It's
is he quirky? Is he when you say phenomenal? Is it quirky and is very much his own, or is it more closer to textbook positions?
This is Iron Byron stuff. How good it is.
Right.
His impact position where it just everything is gone and the club is just coming back. It's just the power that he has. It's incredible. Well,
so if he's 341 yard average and he's ahead of Bryson, he is Wilco Nienaber at 20 years of age, 1 year into his professional career. He is the longest driver in the world of professional golf.
Yeah, I wouldn't go too much on the European Tour stats for driving distance. They only take 2 holes each tournament, so it's not done over an average. So there's the stats in Europe are totally different to the ones in the States.
That's interesting.
He won the amateur South African Open last year, and they've been heralding his play, his length but obviously we are only getting wind of it on the back of his performance at the Joburg Open.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I can tell you.
Sorry.
this tournament coming up in Leopard Creek, this will really suit him. This golf course is right up his alley.
I'll ask you about that in a sec, because Kieran Deneen says, have you seen his swing? It barely looks like he is swinging fast. This is on YouTube. People are watching in various places. And Fergal O'Shea, very similar to Tony Finau. And he says, have you seen the length of his arms? Long levers. I mean, it's only since I started playing golf I realised I have very short arms. And now it's something I'm kind of not obsessed with, but I'm aware of at all times. It's upsetting. You've got long arms, Peter. I presume you know that, don't you?
Longish arms, yes.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You do. Longer than the average person. So you've got those long levers.
Just hanging out from the ceiling, you know.
Not like little T-Rex over here.
Yes.
Just a little Irish link to, I just had to Google it, but Kieran McMonagle, Irish pro, he won the South African Amateur Open in 2000.
All right.
Yep.
So Leopard Creek, I was watching a little bit this morning just to get a feel for the course. Alfred Dunhill is on there. There's lots of wildlife around. I mean, it seems like, Peter, it seems like you look like a lion walking across the fairway.
I played this tournament probably 8-9 times.
What was your best finish?
Rubbish. I can't remember. Not good. I played with Ernie actually in one of the rounds, maybe on a Saturday or Sunday. But he has a house on the golf course. Ernie does. Johan Rupert is the main man there, who runs the Dunhill in Scotland. You know, the Dunhill that they play with the amateurs. But it's one of those places where me personally, I'm scared stiff going to. I'm not good with nature, and every place that you stay in has nature somewhat involved in it. It's not like your normal hotel. There was a hotel on the entrance to the Kruger National Park. You go into your reception and then you have little lodges around. Now, I suppose little lodges would be rooms with wooden kind of roofs on them where you'd see the geckos. So in night times, it could be a gecko running up the walls. A few people had scorpions in their rooms, snakes. So as much as I liked the place, it wasn't my favorite accommodation. Let's put it that way. But great golf course, fantastic golf course, tough, brilliant greens, and you get this wonderful view of Kruger National Park on a couple of the holes that you overlook. And it's just incredible to see nature there. You get lions, tigers, hippos, bears, crocodiles, you name it, it's there.
Yeah. They've redone the greens, by the way, I suspect, since you've been there. They're now running at well over 13 on the stint meter this week.
Yeah. They used to be always fast. Yeah. Great place.
Can I ask Peter an unrelated question? So I watched the Challenge Tour this week, and they had the grand final from Mallorca, I think it was. And can you comment on the state of the Challenge Tour? I haven't followed it in a few years, but like the one thing that struck me was that, well, the quality of play was very high, but the leaderboards are dominated by Scandinavians, a couple of Germans, and obviously like these are all top guys, but like, is it a good indicator of future performances on the European Tour?
Very much so. Over the year, majority of the guys who get their card from Challenge Tour would stay up in comparison to a very, very low percentage coming from Tour School. Because you're based over a certain, period of time, you get used to playing 4 rounds. You get used to the tournament format. The golf courses are not set up as difficult, just depending on where you are. Challenge Tour used to go to many far-flung places. The European Tour has kind of encroached on the Challenge Tour a little bit too much to salvage their season, where they co-sanctioned Kenya this year. That was it used to be a good Challenge Tour event. You know, there was decent money in it. Where else did they go? A lot of China. They were in China twice, I think. Challenge Tour were. They were in Azerbaijan. They used to go to far-flung places.
Wow.
And quite difficult to get to, but golf courses were normally quite good.
One of the things I noticed is that, like, you had three kinds of carry. You had players with caddies, players who put their bag on a trolley, and then there was actual players who carried. I was just like, what on earth would you carry for?
Because you don't have any money. That's why.
Here's the thing. Here's the £4 to get the trolley. I'm sure the golf course will give you the trolley for nothing.
No, some people prefer to carry. You walk less. Carrying your own bag, you get used to it. Especially young guys, they'd be carrying their bag at home.
Yeah.
And the same thing.
It would just the only reason, of course, you're absolutely correct, but the only thought that occurred to me is that when you want to give yourself the absolute best chance of winning, like lugging a tour bag, even though you have it on forks or whatever, like, are you not putting yourself at a slight disadvantage to play against the very, very best players in Europe?
Of course you are, yeah. But a lot of people just don't have the money, and they wouldn't have a tour bag. They'd have a light carry bag.
Yeah, a light carry bag on the forks. Yeah, for sure.
Majority of the times.
I know Joe Molloy would 100% have a caddy.
I'm now at the point where I'm thinking about getting one of those battery-operated things.
You're at that point. I passed that point about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I think I might have to. Kieran, by the way, on YouTube says the patrons of Spawell are thrilled now that the 3 knocks on the back door is no longer required from next week. I mean, everyone's thrilled with that. The secrecy was getting too much. Forget presents and Xmas dinner, he says. Golf is back. Michael Delaney, Scandinavian youth system is one of the best in the world. Didn't realise that. And Jonathan Kennedy over in the long hole in NYC. How did Peter's picks do at the Masters? That's a good question, Jonathan. I know Kokrak finished on about 155 over, so that one didn't go so well.
No. My top 2 didn't go well. I did state that a rookie would win, and he finished second. So that's life.
So look, we'll keep an eye. I mean, I do want to get a look at Wilco and Niana Bear this week. That's it. So you played with Els at Leopard Creek, because I remember you playing with Els on a Saturday or a Sunday at Wentworth as well.
Yeah. I was discussing with myself in Leopard Creek. He had about a 15-footer for eagle on the Saturday. It's funny the way things stick in your head. On the 18th, and I'm in the bunker in 2. And tough bunker shot, and I hit the shot, and you know the way it then occurs to you what you should have done, because I covered his line with sand, and not thinking I should have went, no, Ernie, you go first, because I'm going to cover your line with sand. Anyway, he missed.
And did he give you dirty look?
No. I apologized before he even had a chance to give me the dirty look.
Ernie. He breaks my heart in a way. Are we saying unfulfilled talent? You've played up close with him. 3 majors?
I just think he was in the era of Tiger. And he didn't play as well as he possibly should have when Tiger played. He got succumbed to the Tiger factor, I think.
Yeah. Tiger did seem to get into his head, didn't he?
Yeah, very much so.
Was that Leopard Creek when you played with Els? Was that 2015?
I can't remember, Fionn. No. It was before that. It was, yeah. No,
why did you ask him?
No, just that because didn't you DQ yourself at Q school that year?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I got an invite to play, I think in 2015 in Leopard Creek. And you travel all the way to South Africa. I stayed in a lovely house, but I was scared stiff because of the
geckos.
Let's say the surroundings. So I stand on the first tee, and the first tee, it was on a downslope, but it's the smallest, tiny little tee that they use on the first tee. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, well, I just hit 3 wood up there. No, I've traveled all this way. stop right. You know, he's driven it really nicely in practice rounds. Straight right, lost ball. Stand up again, straight right, lost ball.
Oh my God.
And I've just traveled whatever many 15 hours down here to get here to a place that I don't really feel comfortable staying in, but a great golf course. And I'm now playing 5 off the tee. So.
That's horrendous.
Oh, it was just shocking.
And what happened to you at Q School that year?
Oh, I tried to, I tried glasses, right? I was going through the phase. I've spoken about this before. I tried everything to get back to normality, you know, what I saw normality. And my eyesight was deteriorating. And it was one eye particular. And I couldn't get it laser. I had done laser surgery twice, and I didn't want to, they wouldn't do it again on my left eye. So I decided to wear glasses. So I went down and I said, right, I'm going to wear glasses this week, try them on, grand. First round, okay. Second round, okay. Third round, it was like I was blinded. I couldn't see the hole. I couldn't see the ball. And I think I had 4-putted the 14th hole or something like that. And it got embarrassing. And I just said, look, forget it. I DQ'd myself. So that was it. That was rock bottom right there.
Jesus.
I would well imagine so.
Yeah.
Playing with Ernie. So look, he's in my top 5 swings, you know, just gorgeous to watch. So give us a sense of what it's like to play with him. And, you know, he's a big man. I mean, when you see Ernie, he's a huge man. He's tall and he's wide and he's a big presence. Was the putting always an Achilles heel? Was the swing, you know, as gorgeous in person when you're playing with him?
Even better. Rhythm was just superb. Never looked like he tried to hit it hard. It was just like a little clip off the surface. Driver, the exact same. Putting, he was never the very best at it. He wasn't bad at it, but it was probably his Achilles heel, all right. But wonderful guy to play with. Good chat on the golf course. When he used to have his local caddy down there, Simon, was one of his caddies. Simon used to have a beautiful gold tooth on the front. That was his show of that he was worth it. He was from Soweto, but Simon was one of the nicest guys you'd meet. But he caddied for Ernie when he grew up, and then every time Ernie went back to South Africa, Simon would be on the bag.
Nice. And when you say good chat on the course, what do you consider as a pro good chat?
You chat every hole. You know, we talk about whatever.
About maybe 12 years ago, when Cape Verde was going to be the next Canaries, and there was remember the property developers from Cork who had all that investment?
Yes.
In Cape Verde. So I went down just to have a look at it as a travel journalist, and I can't even remember the name of the company, but they'd engaged the services of Ernie, and they were going to build a golf course on one of the islands, and Ernie was going to be the face or the name to promote the golf course. So on a patch of dirt where the golf course would eventually be, they had like a tee, and Ernie was hitting the ceremonial tee shot that would launch the construction of this golf course. And so there was all of us, there must have been, I don't know, maybe 100 people all around this temporary tee box. And so he hit this beautiful, just like, you know, as Joe said, you know, this wonderfully languid swing with enormous power, and just, you could watch the ball sail away. Big round of applause. And then afterwards, so I got a chance to talk to him, and I said to him, it's like, when just as you're about to hit that first tee, like, what's the thought that's in your head? And he kind of gives a smile and he goes, I just want to hit the ball, man. That's all I think about. Is just want to hit the ball. And later on that evening, you know, we were all gathered in like a local restaurant for like a big thing. And he was the most amenable fella. And my favorite takeaway from it is that like someone at the table said something, and he was just chatting away, and he goes, "So Ernie, like when you're away from the golf course, like what are you into?" And he goes, beers and braai, man, beers and braai. That's all he said, and just made me laugh. But he was that, that braai is in South African barbecue, and he was such an affable guy. And even though there was loads of people pummeling him with questions, because this was not long after his issues at the Open and, the kind of disappointing rivalry with Tiger. And so Ernie was still very much, and he had no problems talking about any of it. It was, I have to say, he was really, really nice fella.
Yeah.
Really
I've seen him at Irish Opens, and he's great with the crowd. Really good guy. Yeah. As sad as you kind of were for Adam Scott in 12, Ernie deserved another major.
Oh, yeah.
He was just that brilliant. So to bring this all to a close then, other bits and bobs, the match 3 is on tomorrow in Arizona. There's no Tiger.
No.
I mean, that as you're kind of, will I flick around, will I find this? That looms large, and you're thinking, it's Phil with Charles Barkley against Steph Curry and Peyton Manning.
One professional golfer.
Yeah. I'm curious to see a bit of Steph Curry because I hear great things. And Peyton Manning played so badly the last time. I'm curious to see if he blows up again. The Charles Barkley routine, I'm saying now, I'm not that bothered. Maybe at the time it'll be funny. But that's on tomorrow if you're into it. So.
But he can't play golf.
I know he can't. He can't.
It's like, it's weird.
Justin Thomas could have been drafted in here somewhere, but there we go.
I was reading that, so Brian Zurif, who's the executive producer of the match, he was speaking to CNBC, and he said, well, it might not necessarily be a bad thing that Woods is not involved this time around. And you're like, really? Oh, okay. Given the draw that Tiger Woods pulls is like, I don't know. But he does say, look, I think it's more than just golf. And Tiger's the greatest golfer of all time. But to spend 3 hours with these guys in the golf carts where they should open up, you don't get that with Tiger.
You don't. And you didn't.
That is true.
You didn't get that the last time.
No.
Though, I think he's still got an insight into him. Is he like a shyer person in some ways then? You realise? Like when Phil so quick-witted, fires him shots all the time. Sometimes Woods, you got small insights. Like you could see Woods necessarily didn't know what to come back to with Phil sometimes, but other times just how much he enjoyed Phil. That was what I took from the last time, you want Tiger there. Even if he's saying nothing, he's still the most interesting person there. He's still the guy you're watching every moment.
Yeah. The more interesting thing will be when he plays with his son, his father and son.
Against the Harringtons.
Well, he's not playing against the Harringtons. The Harringtons are going to play. There was build up. It was Tiger against Thorpe. How bad are the press these days?
The press are awesome. You stop that now.
Okay. Anyway.
Can I just, one little bit of good news in this year of just appalling, repeatedly bad news. Mm-hmm. So these are US figures, but in August alone, consumers spent a record $331 million on clubs, balls, gloves, and other gear, which is 32%. So nearly a third, over the year ago period last year, and topped previous sales record for that month in 2006, which is the last time the numbers were that high.
Good.
So basically, people stuck at home, bored senseless, are just spending money on golf equipment. And that, obviously, I was the first person I thought of was you, Peter. That must be, when the driving range is allowed to be open, but you must have been flooded with people.
Previous to lockdown, we were very busy. We were very busy, and hopefully we will be busy again now, because people won't be able to get out on the golf courses with limited hours of time, limited timesheets. Golf courses are going to be soft, wet, frost, whatever it may be. We're hoping we'll have a bumper December.
No,
it'll make up for me.
I was just going to say, Philip Reed had a piece as an example in the Irish Times. Lahinch, obviously they're very reliant on wealthy Americans coming over and all that stuff, but they're having their general meeting on Thursday, and there'll be a projected deficit of 2.7 million euro in green fees and associated revenues. So suddenly 2.7 million that they would have had is gone kaput, so they'll be digging into some of their reserves. Now, Lahinch, such a brilliant club and hosted such a great Irish Open, will withstand that. But it's a little insight into what lots of clubs are facing, no doubt.
Well, I think absolutely. But you make the point, Joe, and you're right, is that Lahinch, along with those kind of prestige courses that do have a large appeal for the inbound golf tourist, whereas, you know, the local track on the edge of town, you know, that doesn't rely on Americans or whatever, like, will perhaps do better, relatively speaking.
Yeah, I would think so.
The other thing as well is just in terms of the statistics that I was looking at is there's a 75% jump in the sale of training tools, such as like hitting screens, swing aids, putting mats. And also as well is that certainly in the US is the proliferation of people getting out for 9 holes, and which gives credence or greater credence to the argument that maybe, you know, 18 holes is a lot of commitment. It's a lot of hours in the day. And so, you know, should 9 holes become a norm for, you know, just recreational golf rather than 18. So that's what they're saying, is that they have short loops. Short loops have gone up by 20%.
It's the way of the future. Oh, the phone's already ringing.
Booking already.
Imagine that somebody ringing Spa wondering, are we probably open or not?
That's the secret code. 3 rings and hang up, and then Peter goes around to the back door.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's it. It's like.
Luckily, I put up the answering machine before we started.
Oh, good man. Well, look, we're pretty much good to let you go. Hey, that's great that you're open. So you're open from Tuesday, did you say?
Well, we'll know on Friday whether we're allowed open or not, but I would presume it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Okay.
Well, Golf Weekly, as ever, was with thanks to Now TV. You can stream Premier League, Serie A, EFL Championships, and more with the Sky Sports Pass. We will get on to James Sugru, actually, and get him on and hear about playing Augusta. That'd be really cool chat. In the meantime, Fionn, thank you. Peter, thank you. We will talk to you next week. See you next Thursday.
OTB Sports Golf Weekly with Now TV. Stream the Premier League, Serie A and EFL Championships live on Now TV. Your sport on your terms.